What's up, guys, and welcome back to Malt Mondays.
In Scotland, would you accidentally drive up to Talisker?
Now, this week, we're taking a look at the Glenfiddich 21-year-old rum cask. 21 years in bourbon, ex-bourbon, or, previously used whiskey casks. And then a few months, maybe a whole year, who knows, in rum barrels. Probably 3 to 6 months. That seems to be the way most of the finishing whiskeys are done. So they include this little booklet that's got some tasting notes, which we won't look at, and does have a little bit of a blurb that I find interesting. So it says that their malt master, Brian, finishes this single malt in Reserva barrels that previously held our own unique Caribbean rum, an exclusive recipe from several tropical islands. So, what does that mean? Well, it could mean two things. It could mean they didn't find any brand of rum that produced a spirit that would impart the flavors they wanted for their whiskey, which I kind of find hard to believe because there's a lot of different rums produced. And therefore, they created their own high-quality rum to create that flavor profile. Or, what I think is more likely, is that it was more expensive to purchase barrels and work with a supplier who was already making really high quality spirit that they wanted than it was to create their own solely for the purpose of seasoning their casks for this whiskey, with no intention of it being a real product brought to market that would be sold. And I personally don't really like that. I don't know that that's what they did. I suspect it may be. And I suspect that for the same reason that it's suspicious when they do that with sherry casks. I'm not saying Glenfiddich does, but other brands will do that with sherry casks. Because generally if there's a way to cut costs, it doesn't correlate with keeping or increasing quality. That's all I'll say. But that being said, it doesn't really matter as long as the product at the end is excellent and it is what they really intended it to be. So this is bottled at 40% ABV, typical for Glenfiddich. It's a little, I expect it, so I'm not surprised, but I think everybody would like them to start following the market trend, which is producing higher ABV spirits. But that's also what they have Balvenie for. Balvenie is following that trend a little more. Maybe not to the degree people would like, but they are at least 43%, 46, 47% on most of their whiskeys. So, Glenfiddich, natural coloring, and 21 years old. This will be the oldest Glenfiddich I've had. And I have reviewed their 18 and their 12-year-old. So I'm interested to see how more age and a little bit more of a unique finishing plays with the Glenfiddich brand. So on the nose. That smells really good. No sharpness, no alcohol. Definitely a lot of the older oak aromas. A little bit of apricot. A little bit of the burnt sugar, brown sugar from the rum. Just overall a little bit of a darker aroma than you would typically get with Glenfiddich. However, the green apple that I always get in their 12-year-old really a lot is still there. And I think that adds a little bit of a brightness to the aroma that makes it quite well balanced. And just a hint of spice. Now, the Balvenie 14-year-old, which was also done in rum cask that I reviewed last week, is a little more on the spicy sugar, brown sugar aroma compared to this. But this is a lot more elegant than that. And there's definitely some other tropical notes in there. A little bit of orange. And like a hint of lime. So let's see how it tastes. That tastes fantastic. That is really good. So I'm really surprised how much I like this actually, because I have not up till now tasted a Glenfiddich that I really enjoyed. Every single one has been like, I understand what they're doing, but it's not for me. This one is. There's a really, really nice toffee flavor, and I think that's the brown sugar, the rum coming through. There's a little bit of a cinnamon spice. There's just a hint of citrus, of brightness, that lime, that apricot. They're just like little zests of flavor on top. And then the finish goes into leather, oak. But I do think the flavor is a little too short. I think it really transitions from the flavor into the finish too quickly. And I think the finish is a little too one note. Now, it's very pleasant. It's a very well orchestrated, array of flavors and whatnot. But I don't think, compared to a lot of other 21-year-old scotches, I don't think this one has quite the staying power of you really sip a glass over an hour. I think the actual taste, the upfront flavor of this whiskey is really excellent, to the point where you're going to want to drink it faster. And although there is complexity to this, I don't think the finish is really where it should be. So now Normally, I would always pour my whiskeys during a review, and I didn't in this case. I poured it first before I started the video to let it open up in the glass, because it's an older whiskey. General rule of thumb is a minute per year of the whiskey, just as a guideline. It's different for everyone, but I typically don't do that because I have bottles open for several months before I review them. This, I haven't had open that long, and it's a small bottle, so it's not going to really change due to air in the bottle very quickly. So that's why you didn't see me pour it. But man, if I had known how good this was, I would have opened it a lot sooner, and it probably wouldn't have lasted long enough for me to review it. I think the hard thing here is going to be, this is a $200 bottle, and a lot of times I think you have to decide what you're looking for in your whiskey. This, to me, falls in the same trap as the 21-year-old Portwood from Balvenie, is the fact that it's an excellent whiskey, really well balanced, very smooth. It's just good whiskey. But what are you looking for? Are you looking for a bottle that you pull out on a special occasion and you pour for your father or your friends or somebody who's over who's not a whiskey consumer, someone who doesn't buy and try a lot of different whiskeys? If that's the case, I think this is absolutely something you need to look at, because this is just delicious. But if you're the kind of person that really wants to try new flavors and try exciting, bold flavors, I think there's other brands that are going to be doing things at the $150, $200 price point, like the Octomore series, that are going to excite you more. So I think, I do think I'm tempted to go buy a bottle of this, which is not something I would say I normally say when I try $200 whiskey. But again, I was very much into rum before I discovered whiskey. I had started to get into higher end rums, and so this is right up my alley. Now, compared to the Balvenie 14-year-old last week, that was also a rum cask, this is 2 to 3 times better. Very similar in terms of flavor profile, but much more complex, and it's just hands down better whiskey. Side by side, it's not really that close. But again, that's going to depend on what you're looking for. A 5-year-old Octomore is way better for somebody who wants really bold, crazy flavors than a 21-year-old Glenfiddich, even though they're the same price. So and again, the ABV is going to be off-putting to some. Typically, 40% to me feels really watery and thin in the mouth. I think the rum finishing has alleviated and ameliorated some of that, because it's got a little more of a syrupy, sugary, just a feel to it from that. So let me know if you've had the 21-year-old rum cask, what you think of it, whether you like it, whether you don't, and why. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out. And until next week, cheers.